You're listening to She's the Business podcast. We've started to hear a lot about being magnetic or magnetically attracting the right clients, the right things into our lives, into our business. And I wanted to deep dive into this whole piece about being magnetic and uncover what is the actual art of being magnetic, because it's not something that you're born with. You're not just born magnetic. In fact, I think we're probably all born more magnetic than what we realize, and over time we lose our magnetism. So as an adult, it's about reclaiming that magnetism, reclaiming that energy that serves to attract in and bring in what we do want, and also serves us to not bring in the things that we don't want. Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Osborne, and in my 23 years of business and marketing, I've built many brands to become multi-billion-dollar companies. And just in the last 10 years, I've built 2 online businesses of my own from my dining room table with 2 little babies running around at my feet. I've made it my mission to inspire you to get out of your own way and become the successful business owner who's living the lifestyle you really desire without all the hustle. This is She's the Business podcast, made by women for women. This is your weekly dose of motivation and inspiration. So I have really like a bit of a 3-step process here where I want to start off by, in order for us to shift into the place of being magnetic, then we need to look at the energy around magnetism. Now, magnets, as you know, have both a push and a pull energy. So both of them exist at the same time. And without one of them, then it stops being a magnet. There is no such magnet that only has a one-way force. No, it has a 2-way force field. So as you repel, so you attract. And this is really important to remember in marketing and business, because it's really easy for us to focus on attraction, to be thinking, I want to attract. I want to attract everybody. I want to serve everybody. And to forget that in order to attract, we also must be repelling. Now, not many people focus on who they want to repel, but I think that this is one of the main success factors that my Business Jam students have when they go through my program, is because we spend time figuring out what we want to repel. What is it that you do not want? Who is it that you do not want to come in to work with you? Because anyone who's saying, well, I want everybody, is actually just hasn't got to that level of focus within yourself to sit down and say, well, actually, of course, there are some types of clients that I do not want, that would not make a great client, that would not make a great experience, that would not make me feel fulfilled, that would not make me happy. Whereas on the flip side, the ideal client would do all of those things, would make you feel amazingly fulfilled, would be the easiest relationship that you have. It's not hard work. It's not overly time consuming. It's definitely not soul sucking, right? When you have an ideal client. And I really emphasize that word ideal there, because this is what it is about. It's not about just attracting clients. This is about attracting our ideal clients. And let's not just use that term and say, well, I've created a customer avatar, therefore they're my ideal client. No, well, I'd say your ideal client is actually a subset of what you've identified as your customer avatar. Your ideal client are the ones that you would choose if you had a lineup in front of you and you could pick one. It's the one that you would choose every time, because they make your life easy. But usually as well, they tick these other boxes. They see your value. They therefore are quite happy to pay for your value, and they do not argue, squabble, quibble over tiny things. They're not high maintenance. They actually work and fit really well with you and your business and the way that you do business, which means that you're a match made in heaven. Now, you might be thinking, well, there's not enough of them out there. And I really challenge you to look at that. You know, how many people are there out there in your entire prospect pool, even when you've narrowed it down to your customer avatar? How many of them out there are there out there? Like, you probably have no idea, but I would beg to say there's probably millions, especially when we start expanding your geographical location. If you have an online business, then you can technically work with people anywhere in the world, even narrow it down to English speaking places or wherever your natural tongue is. There's still going to be far, far, far more people out there than your business could ever possibly serve. And I'm saying that as assuming that you're not running Google or some huge multi-global conglomerate kind of business. But if you have a service-based business where you're doing any form of actual serving to customers, so they're signing up with you and there's an element of service involved in your business, even if it's a course or an online program, you still have a form of active service to each of your clients, even if it's mostly done by systems, right? So when we have this type of business, we're not looking in the millions of customers. We're probably not even looking in the thousands all at once, although I guess if you have a membership, you might get into thousands. We're probably looking more at hundreds and even in the tens. So scale that right down. Now, how many clients do you need to have in a year to be really highly successful, even at your wildest dreams? What would that most outrageous number be? And then compare that to what you think that exists in the market, as in that fit your customer avatar. I'd say that there are far more than what we naturally tend to perceive, because our brains automatically go into a bit of a scarcity mindset around this, because we might look at who we see when we're online, when we're in a Facebook group. Well, I see these people in there, and you kind of start to believe, behind the scenes, maybe not consciously believing this, but we'll say in your subconscious, you start to think that that is your market and that's all it exists, except that that's one tiny section of it. Your market is not the sum of what you see in a Facebook group. There are so many people that aren't even there. They're not even in those groups that you would have no idea about. So let's start thinking about repelling, because this is going to be your superpower. What is it that you want to repel? Who do you want to repel? That is number one step to actually being able to switch on your magnetism and being able to attract anybody in the first place. The more you can repel, as in the more specific you get about the repelling, then the opposite also happens. The more specific you are about the attracting, which works for you because it means it does repel those more people who are not the right fit for you, but it also helps you attract in the ones who are the right fit. So if you're not repelling right now, and you're finding it hard to attract, well, I'd say that would be the very first place that you go to look to see, how can I make this easier in my business? What if I just actually start saying, I'm not there for that. This is what I'm going to repel. This is what is not my ideal. And then taking the opposite of that to be the ones that are right for you. Even just making that decision in your own head, and therefore in who you're speaking to when you're putting any sort of communication out there, I guarantee we'll see a shift in what you're doing in your business. So there we go. Wow. Start being magnetic. Amazing. That is really step one for me. You need to turn on the energetic force field. Otherwise, there's no energy. We're just as magnetic as a piece of plain paper, sitting there on the desk, which is not attracting anything much. And even though those of us in energetics, which is not me, so I don't know why I said us, those people who are in energetics would say, well, everything has energy. So even a piece of plain paper has energy. It just has a far less strong energetic force, than a human being. Like, we are actually quite magnetic beings. And when we're not applying that magnetism in our business, then we start to turn into these inert lumps that really are lacking that ability to attract. So we move on from there. That was number one. Number two is about authority. Now, I say this word and I really want to dive in and explain what this is, because when we say authority, I think instantly into your mind probably flashes a few different things. We might think of authority as an authoritative, as in, professors and lecturers that we would listen to at university, or maybe the top thought leaders in the world who have authority. However, authority, when we're looking at your business, when we're looking at the type of businesses that we run, where you're selling your expertise and your skills and your experience. So when it is mental value that we are providing, as in it's something that you've created from within your head, it's something that you've learnt, and this is how you're providing a service, whether it's a done for you, done with you, that doesn't matter whether you're a coach or if you're providing some sort of done for you service. You're still selling your expertise. You're still selling your knowledge and what you've gained. And for some people, and for many of us, when the imposter syndrome kicks in, we can start to think, well, I don't have authority, or I can't be in authority because I'm not the number one authority. You know, I'm not Simon Sinek. So how could I have authority in this space? Or we might be thinking, I'm not an expert, so I don't really have expertise. And there's something really interesting in this, because when you look up the definition of an expert, it simply says somebody who has knowledge or experience and gained experience in a certain area. It doesn't mean that you have all the knowledge. It doesn't mean that you have the most experience. It just means that you have knowledge or experience in an area. And usually this is where we've decided to focus our business, because it's what we know. It's what we know well, and it's what we want to do, right? You know, why would you choose to do something in your business that is not an area you have expertise in? Because there are other people out there who have expertise and they're doing it. You have your expertise in an area is probably something that you actually really, really enjoy. So I'm sure that when you're looking at it, this is where you've chosen to focus your business efforts. Now, yes, you are an expert. You have expertise, which means that you have the ability to have authority. What makes it authority? How do you go from simply being someone with expertise who has no authority to being someone with expertise who does have authority? And this is really all about in the way that you communicate. There's a lot of people who feel like, I guess we grew up with this. So I'm going to say it's a learned habit of talking at people, telling them things. And in doing so, feeling that this gives them authority because they have knowledge and they are telling other people this is what it is, and therefore that makes me authoritative in that way. Although really true authority is where you can demonstrate your knowing of something that's actually helped somebody else to see it and understand it. And so it's through the communication of what it is that you know, your expertise, that turns into authority. Because authority is more than just knowledge. It's somebody who people will follow and look up to. And we all look up and follow people who help us to understand, help us to gain more insight, more understanding. And the only way that we really do that powerfully is when somebody is able to help us see what is already in front of us, help us see ourselves more clearly, turn that mirror, right? Put the mirror in front of us so we can see what's being reflected back and see it really clearly. And this brings about an authority. So authority it's not something that you are born with. Again, it's not something that you need to either have or have not. It is a learned skill. It's a learned skill to have authority in the way that makes you magnetic, in the way that brings somebody along with you. You can all think about somebody that you might see with a lot of authority. Like, for instance, you will have heard of Tony Robbins, I'm sure. Who hasn't heard of Tony Robbins? What actually makes him so authoritative in his area is the way he speaks. And I encourage you to listen to anything that he puts out. Go and actually just spend 5 minutes, grab one of his videos on YouTube and listen to how he speaks. Everything he explains, he talks about in stories and pictures. And it's this interesting concept where if you're simply telling someone something that they don't know, and often we're then connecting it to something else that they don't know, they're sitting there and they're not making a powerful connection. They might be seeing some thread, but when you explain something that they don't know with a story of something that they do know, as in a metaphor usually is the best way to do these, it can make a very powerful connection, a deep understanding straight away. And so the learning gained and the speed at which you learn from somebody like that is so much faster than the traditional method that we all learned when we went through university and had to read all those textbooks. So think in your mind, what is a story that would help somebody to understand something really clearly? And I'll give you an example. I have a really strong belief that there are a lot of marketing knowledge out there in our online space. People are talking marketing all the time. I'm one of them, yes, of course. However, most of the marketing advice that you'll read about in books or you'll see when it's kind of been put out there for the masses is for a product-based business. And now I firmly believe, from learned experience myself and just through seeing what is happening with other people, when you're taking advice that has been created for a product-based business and you're applying it to your service-based business, then it's not designed for it. It doesn't work very well. And we see so many people falling into this trap because they're trying to take advice that's not meant for them, which would be like using toothpaste to clean your hair. And so here is my very short metaphor or analogy. When you use toothpaste to clean your hair, toothpaste cleans. Toothpaste was never designed to clean hair. And so it's not the right tool, the right strategy to take the toothpaste in order to clean your hair. You're not going to get the result that you wanted if you use shampoo, right? So that really, really simple analogy just straight away was like, yeah, it is a thing. There's nothing wrong with the toothpaste. Toothpaste works, but it works when you're using it to clean teeth. It's not something that's going to be fantastic for your hair, right? So in the same way, where advice for product-based businesses, it works. It's amazing. But don't take that and apply it to your service-based business and expect it to work the same way. You actually need shampoo. So that is an example of where you can use a story. There's so many different types of stories you can use, and I'm sure your brain can start thinking straight away. But when you can help someone to see something really simply and clearly with a super easy analogy, it makes their life a lot easier. It helps them to take in what you're saying, and that is what gives you this authority, because suddenly they're like, boom, that was clear. I've never heard it explained like that before, and I totally get it. Guess who they're going to listen to next time? Exactly. So they're the first two. Now, number 3, you're like, okay, this is great, but what else is it? What if I am repelling people, or I'm decided who I want to repel? What if I've started to help people to understand and connect the dots instead of just talking at them and telling them information? What if I'm helping them to see things that they're doing and therefore building authority? Surely there's something else that combines into it that makes you magnetic, that really turns on the magnetism. And you'd be right. And I think for me, I came up with a formula of, I'm not going to say a formula, we'll say the 4 V's, because it's not a formula, they're just 4 things. They all start with V, so I call it the 4 V's of being magnetic. And when you have all 4 of these, I think this is when it absolutely clicks for you. And it's really interesting because it combines into what I love to talk about with your brand and your communications, your messaging. It is all of it and none of it, but it's intertwined, and these 4 V's explain it perfectly. V number 1 is your vibe. Now, this is something you cannot see. It's not in your brand designs on their own. It's not in your writing on its own. It's actually invisible, but it's the vibe in everything that they see. So when they see your stuff, are they seeing something that's feeling inspiring, that's giving them an emotion of inspiring? Or is it a vibe of doom and disaster? Is it a vibe of complaining? Is it a vibe of, inspiration, motivation? I think that we probably can all imagine that if there's a vibe of complaining or a vibe of doomsday, then it's probably a bit less magnetic, except to people who are also doomsdayers or who are also complainers. They're probably really attracted to that because they're like, yeah, that's so true. And what about this? They want to get on the complaining thing because that's about them. That's who they are. So think about, well, who is it you want to repel? Who is it you want to attract? And make sure that Your vibe, what you're putting out there, is something that is so aligned to the right people. You cannot help but then attract them because they'll feel like you're on the same wavelength. You've got something in common. And when we say that, the same wavelength, right? This is exactly it. You can't see wavelengths. It's like we're on the same page. We've got the same view. We're walking to the same beat of the drum. They're just, you get a feeling. And it comes from their overall perception of what they're seeing, what they're hearing, what they're feeling when they listen, read, or see your stuff. So the vibe, it's invisible, but it's so powerful. The second V are your values, and values align with this. Again, somebody who has values around time and family is going to be very different from someone who has values around, burning the midnight oil, working all night, and, just having no friendships, burning it all down in order to get somewhere. They're two very different people. And so the person that has values around, really valuing their time, they're like, hey, I've only got one life. I want to live it. I want to experience everything, and I want to be present with my family and all of those things. They're going to be aligned with that sort of message because it's what they already believe and they already have that value. Whereas someone who's like, hey, I've got 24 hours, same as everyone else, hustle harder, you only need 2 hours sleep, whatever all of that stuff is that they're saying, they're going to very much be aligned with any message like that. That's saying, yeah, like, what are you doing in your 24 hours in the day? Look what this person could do. That's going to be attracting a very different sort of person. So you can see here that your values are so important to your degree of magnetism because they really help you to bring in the right people who are connected and aligned with you so that you gel together, so that they are your ideal customer because they have the same view and vision of what it's all about than that you do. Maybe you're a few steps ahead of where they want to be and they look up to you and it's like amazing, which it would be great to have, but they want that same outcome. And that value alignment is so important. It's all about having the right people coming in who are working with you. Now, the third V is your voice. So what do I mean by voice? It's not actually just you speaking. Your voice is what you're saying and how you're saying it. So it may be where you're speaking on a podcast like I am right now. You might be listening to me, but it's not just about what I sound like. It's actually the words that I'm saying. It's how I'm delivering it. What that voice is, the messaging that you might have. And, when we say messaging, I think we all get so technical and wound up like, am I saying the right words in the right time in the right place? And, well, really trying to engineer it. And it doesn't need to be engineered when you're speaking from the heart. When you're speaking from the heart about something that you know and you love and you have so much passion in, you cannot help to have a strong voice in it. You cannot help to have authority when you're using your voice. So voice is so important because if you've got all of that knowledge, but you're keeping it to yourself, you're not spreading it, whether your voice is written or spoken, it doesn't matter which. But if you're keeping it to yourself, then you have no voice. How can people possibly connect and find you when you're not sharing what is inside? When I say that, I love to just provide little caveats, like meanings around what I say. When I say that you're sharing what's inside, I'm not saying that you share everything, that you share, lay it all bare, that you give everything that you know away in your content, or that you share all your personal stuff. Absolutely not. It's not about that. When somebody is following somebody else, we'll just think about who you might follow. You don't need to know absolutely everything about them in order to feel that they have authority and feel that they are someone who could help you and that you like them, that you want to follow them, right? You can probably think of someone right now that you're like, yep, everything they do, I follow it and I love it. I get right into it. You don't need to know about all their dirty laundry. That's not what makes you follow them. Usually what makes you follow them, and if you really think about it, it will be what we've just been talking about, their vibe. the fact that your values are aligned, the fact that they have authority in a space and they're really clear on who it is they're talking to. You can only have authority when you are being specific, when you're being clear and talking to those people, because without specificity, you really start to lack authority in a place. They go hand in hand. You need to be specific. And so when I say voice, number 3 being your third V, being a voice, it is having some communication that is clearly connecting with the people. And you're sharing that with real authenticity. It's coming from your heart. It doesn't need to be formulated, templated messaging. And actually, while I'm on that topic, ChatGPT, this is why when you use a tool like ChatGPT, you should just be so mindful of it. The more it gets used and the more people are using it, the more generic everything is sounding, because it's taking the sum of what's out there and giving it to you. And yes, it can do different voices and things. Is it your voice? And I would argue it's not. So there's nothing wrong with using it, but I would use it as, wow, here's some ideas for me. Here's something so I'm not starting with a blank page. Here is a baseline. However, to have true authority, I believe that you already know it. It's already in your head. And if you're blocking it from coming out, then there's probably something to work through there in terms of you feeling like you can have a voice. What is it that you think that you need to do or know or be in order to be able to share what's already inside? Why do you think that you need to ask ChatGPT would know more than you or have something better to say than you if we're talking about something that you have an area of expertise in? I believe that the more we use something like ChatGPT to write our content, the more vanilla everybody is going to get. And yes, you all have different voices and tones and whatever we've told ChatGPT to do. But if you're using it as the source of your content and you're not actually using your own content as the source, then it is going to become much more vanilla, because it's going out there. That's just what's happening. And as more and more and more people use it, there's going to be more of the same feeding the machine. It's all going in and it's very similar. So now what's coming out will be very similar as well. And there'll be more and more and more of it as more people use it. So use ChatGPT, I think, with a real pinch of salt. If you actually want to be magnetic, you want to have authority, a vibe, voice, strong values, then you need to be drawing that from within you. That's where it lives, and you actually have it. You may just be afraid to share it. You might be afraid, what if it's not right? What if people judge me? What about all of these things? And I think that would be a really good place to look and see, well, do I have any of those fears? Like, what if I did believe that I have it all within me? What would it take me to actually just start sharing it? Oh, we went deep there. That was the third V out of my 4 Vs. And the fourth one is visibility. So yes, we do need to be visible in a way so that people can see you, so that they can connect with you, so that they can be attracted to you. If we're hiding in our business, not using our voice and not being visible at all, how do you expect people to be magnetically attracted to you? If you're hiding behind a logo that's being designed by a designer, if you're hiding behind a professional face or website that's, using lots of stock images, and I'm not saying that you have to plaster your face everywhere. That may not be your comfort level. However, we do actually need to start to be visible. And by visible, it's letting a little bit of the door open so people can see you. They can see and connect with the real human. And I know that as I say that, because I used to be the same, I was there too. I know that some people are saying, well, it's not just me. It's not a business that's just me. Or I need to have an exit strategy. Therefore, if I make my business all about me, then I won't ever be able to sell it. And I have to say that as somebody who has managed brands for 20 odd years before I started this business. So I'm at 25 plus years of marketing experience right now. I've managed complete brand rebrands, takeovers, mergers, acquisitions, all sorts of things. it doesn't matter what the existing brand had. If you're creating a new brand, there is always going to be some brand equity that you can bring with it, no matter what. And there will be a huge amount. It's actually more about the process of that changeover. So let's not use that as an excuse to not get your face out in front of your business, because the more that people can see and connect with a real human, the faster and easier that trust is. It's much easier to have a vibe when you're a human and not just a brand that's like a brand on a product. It's so much easier to have values that people can see and connect with and actually feel like there's a level of, to feel a real authentic connection. Then they need to feel like this is there is a human there. And of course, your voice. Well, humans have the best voices. Guess what? Machines don't really have great voices, although I know that ChatGPT is doing voice now. It can make a fake real voice for you. However, being visible and actually allowing yourself to be at the front does have a huge impact on all of these things. You might still be holding on to a little bit of doubt around that. And so I'd like to share with you just an example. The one that came to mind for me when I was thinking about this is Richard Branson, who, as we all know, is the head of Virgin. Now, Virgin is a brand, but we have Richard Branson, who's always been very much the face of the brand. Even though it's got a logo and its own professional design style of the brand, because he has allowed himself to be visible, to have a voice, to have a vibe and values, those things have been permeated through the Virgin brand. People know what they're getting with it. And he has disrupted so many markets simply because of that, because people felt a stronger connection to his brand than any of the existing players that had no personality, that had no actual real human connection. And it's a lot more than subscribing personality traits to a logo or a brand that has no person. It's much, much deeper than that, because it is a real human being and is acting in accordance with those values, is always true to them as well, standing by them. There's integrity there. There's so much there. And when we are not allowing a real human to be visible in the business, then it's so much harder to get to that place. And I'd say that, really detrimental in trying to build a brand that does have authority. Think about the ones that right now that you can think of where there is a human that you attribute and connect with that brand. So we've already mentioned, obviously, Tony Robbins. He is his own brand. And we've mentioned Richard Branson, but you can think of Elon Musk. We all know Elon Musk. We know what are his brands, because he allows himself to be visible and to be out there. Whether you like him or not doesn't matter. That's part of the vibe, right? You're going to be attracted to some people and repelled from others. And that's all part of it. But it's that visibility. Whereas if we think of some other big brands we might know, like Hewlett-Packard or Coca-Cola, do you have any name that comes to mind of who it is? Now, you might know who is the founder or who started it, just simply because it's some information that you know, but it's not known. It's not broadly known. They're just a brand that people have heard of. And we don't want to be just a brand people have heard of, especially because we're not global, enormous consumer brands like that have had 50 years or 100 years or even more of building that recognition and loyalty. If they came out right now and tried to start their business doing what they are doing or have done, I would say, in my opinion, that they would be really unsuccessful, because they're lacking that human element. They're really lacking the vibe and the authority in what they're doing. So the 4 V's, just to sum up for you: vibe, values, voice, visibility. They are essential in order to have magnetic attraction with your authority. And I hope that that's been really insightful. I know that I've talked about a lot of things in a very short space of time, but this is, I love to share with you little insights into the approach that I take within my Business Jam program. This is the type of thing that helps my students to get really great results really quickly, because it's not about the 7 steps of how to market your business. It's actually about how to dive deeper within you and bring out a lot of what you already know, who you already are and help to present and showcase that in an authentic way without hustle. You don't have to be doing anything, going out there and trying to hunt down clients. Like, I do not subscribe to that at all and never have. Because if you can shine the light and be the light and actually show the real you, you will magnetically attract the right people to you. So how much easier does that sound? To be able to magnetically attract and to not have to go out there and try to find them, hunt them down, search for those clients. You definitely don't need to be doing that when you have a magnetic force field working for you. And that is the art of being magnetic. So thank you so much for joining me today. As always, I've enjoyed your company. And if you've loved this episode, then I would love it if you would leave me a review here on the podcast. I read all of them personally, and you will get a shout out on a future episode if you do that. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. From me to you, have a lovely rest of your day. Now, if you're a professional offering coaching or done-for-you services and you're not currently attracting enough clients, and the ones that you are attracting are not high quality, meaning they're not the sort that'll light you up inside or paying premium rates, and they're just not feeling like a great match for you, then it's very likely you've simply got a disconnect happening in your marketing strategy, which the good news is really easily fixed when you know how. So I'd like to invite you to join me for my only free and live training that I'm running this year in 2023, and it's called Master Your Marketing. I'm going to share with you the strategic principles you can apply today in your business so that you can attract the high quality clients and be working less and earning more. So you have more free time to spend with your family or for yourself or doing whatever it is that you love to do most. So this training is split into 3 separate sessions, just so that it's not too much all in one go. I really like to get rid of the overwhelm. Let's make this super, super simple. It starts on the 12th of October and it's going to run over the course of about 10 days. So there'll be 3 live sessions. There will be plenty of chat and time to connect in between. Yes, there will be replays. And I'm even planning a secret podcast for those people who have registered so that you can consume that content in a way that really makes sense for you, especially if you are already a podcast listener and you like to listen when you're out on your walks or driving or doing other things, then I've got you covered. So head to jessicaosborne.com/MYM and pop your name down on the list to register for this training now. You're only going to get access to it if you are registered. And there's so much fun that we're going to have. This is the one time I'm, really throwing open the doors, having a bit of a party. You're all invited. Come and join me for it. We're going to have an absolute blast. So that is starting the 12th of October, and all you need to do is head to jessicaosborne.com/MYM. The link is below in the captions, in the show notes. So please get yourself on that list, register now, and we can connect before the training even starts and start having a lot of fun together. So that's jessicaosborne.com/MYM for Master Your Marketing. Let's master your marketing this year.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of She's the Business podcast. I hope that you've been enjoying it as much as I have in creating the content to bring to you. So I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate your presence and your attention. Now, if you love the podcast, or maybe you just loved today's episode, then I would absolutely appreciate it if you would go to Apple Podcasts, scroll down, hit the 5 stars, and then leave me a short review about what it was that you really enjoyed in this episode, or maybe in the podcast overall. And when I receive those reviews, then I love to give those reviewers a shout out on my future podcast episodes. So you never know, you may hear your name getting a shout out in a future episode if you do that. So thank you once again for your time, and I'll see you next time on She's the Business.